Welcome to Chalk Talk, Danville Public Schools Weekly News Magazine. I'm Diane Locker, your host. We've been looking at schools that have new principals, and we're at Woodberry this week also with a new principal, but there's something different about this new principal. She's certainly not new to being a principal and certainly not new to Danville or our community. Kim Agnor is the principal here this year at Woodberry, and Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, I said native. Native of this area. Now, I believe you said you went to basically county schools.
Yes, I grew up in Pennsylvania County, but just right outside the city limits of Danville.
And you went on to college, Longwood?
Longwood University. It was Longwood College then.
We won't talk about the whens of the time. Now, you got a degree in science.
I have a bachelor's of science in elementary education.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about your career. Now, I think you've had, we said a little bit earlier, about 20 years with Danville Public Schools.
Yes, this is my 20th year with Danville Public Schools. I began in Chesterfield County for 6 years, and then I came home and I began working in Pennsylvania County for a year, and then I was offered a position with Danville Public Schools.
Go back to Chesterfield. Now, Chesterfield, you were a teacher at that time.
Yes, I was.
Now, what level and what were you teaching?
I taught 7th and 8th grade math in Chesterfield County, mostly 8th grade.
That's middle school, right?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Now, how long were you there?
I was in that particular area for 6 years.
Then, when you left there, you came back to our area.
Yes, and I taught at Blair's Middle for
So
a
you
year.
were out in the county teaching, and you also went back to another middle school situation.
Yes, I was at Blair's Middle.
And what were you doing there?
I was the technology education teacher for a year.
We talked about that a little bit. Now, you were like, what do we have here in Danville that's like that?
Well, it's probably better known to most people as the shop class, but I was
Why
teaching
shop?
It was a synergistics lab at the time. They were making the transition over to being computerized.
Okay.
But we also worked with bandsaws and belt sanders and things like that.
Now, give me a year on that synergistic lab.
That would have been 1996, 97.
And at that time, they were switching over to computers.
Yes.
All right. So you did that, you said, for a year. And I think we talked a little bit earlier. You said that really wasn't kind of your thing.
No, that's not what I was trained to be.
Not what you wanted to do.
No, not at all.
So
I wanted to be a math teacher.
You wanted to be a classroom teacher. So you ended up at that point back in Danville Public Schools?
Yes, I was offered an opportunity to interview for the gifted program as the 6th grade math and science teacher.
Now, was that at Bonner?
Yes, it was at Bonner.
Now, how long were you there?
10 years.
10 years as the gifted math and science?
For 6th grade, yes.
Okay. After that, where'd you go?
Now,
this is all still middle school?
Yes. I actually served as the assistant principal at Westwood Middle School for 2 years. And then I became the director of talent development and remediation at Gibson Middle School.
Okay, go back to Westwood. You were there 2 years?
Yes.
Now, as assistant principal?
Yes.
Now, the talent and development that you did when you went to Gibson Middle School, isn't that sort of like assistant principal? I mean, you worked with teachers?
Similar. It's a little quasi-administration and instruction.
Okay. And you worked in staff development?
Yes.
Now, for the sake of the community out there, when we say staff development, that means basically what it says. You worked with programs to help teachers work with the students.
Exactly. Yes, I did.
All right. So, once again, we're in a middle school situation.
Yes.
But then I think you had a change then, and you went to principal of Taylor.
I was made principal of Taylor Elementary, I believe it was 2012-13.
Now, I always say, when I look at these things and I see someone that goes from high school to middle school or middle school to elementary school, I think really what's very unique about that is when you go from a middle school situation to the principal of an elementary school, there's one thing you know what those kids need when they leave that school.
Right, I know where they have to go.
Yeah, and that's very important.
It is.
Yes, it's like, what do they need? What's it going to be like when they leave elementary and they go into middle school?
Yes, exactly.
And you were there long enough as a teacher and as an administrator to know that. What was it like for you personally, though, for all of those years, how many years was that you spent in a middle school situation?
Probably 22 years, 22
Okay,
years.
so you've got about approximately 20 years working with middle school students. And
Yes.
everyone in education knows that that's probably the toughest group you can work with. But what was it like for you to transition from that middle school to the elementary school, and all of a sudden you see all these kids that you had been getting? Now you're in the sending situation.
Yes, it really is a great experience and a learning experience, because I think when you're isolated in a certain age level, you tend to think, what are they doing in this school? What are they doing at this level? Well, when you see how much change occurs in elementary school, it's amazing.
You mean a change from when they come in to when they leave?
Yes, from the time they begin as a kindergartner until they're ready to go to middle school, there is a massive change in all children.
All children.
Yes.
There's a change in size, a change in age, the change in intelligence,
change in independence level.
Yes, very
It's
much
very
so.
different.
So now you only spent a year at Taylor, but that was because we closed Taylor at
Right.
that time.
Taylor was one of the 3 schools closed in Danville at that time.
When Taylor was closed, let's go back to Gibson Middle School. Gibson Middle School, Gibson was closed as a middle school.
Yes.
Reopened that next year as an elementary
As an
school.
elementary school.
You went from Taylor
To Gibson.
To Gibson.
And our job then was to bring 3 schools together. So it was pretty much 3 faculties from 3 different schools and students from 3 different schools in the Danville area.
I remember interviewing you at that time, and we talked about just that thing. How do you bring these faculties together, because you were dealing with 3 elementary schools that had been closed, 2 elementary and 1 middle. How did that go? Or is it 3 elementary?
Actually, that was the year Woodrow, Taylor, and Glenwood closed, and then Gibson Middle closed, and their students went to Westwood and Bonner.
You're not only dealing with bringing those staffs together, you're dealing with people that were where they thought they were going to be, where they wanted to be.
Right.
And all of a sudden they say, oh no, we're closing those schools, you're going over here. So you had that to deal with. You had this faculty that came together. And you also ended up, because of the 3 communities coming together, you had a large school.
Yes, it is. It's a rather large school. And it was a great experience. It was a lot of change that year. I think that was our theme, was change.
Also, the communities coming together, the staffs coming together, there were students that had not been together.
No.
So you had your students, your staff, the communities, even you coming from another situation.
Right.
It was like a brand new school.
It was. It was a brand new school for all of us. And it was a wonderful growing experience. Then the children came in. At the beginning of the year, we didn't know if we'd be ready because we were in the transition of making a middle school building appropriate for an elementary school.
There was a lot, I shouldn't say a lot, but there was some construction going on, wasn't there?
Yes, there was.
Because there's spaces in a middle school that we didn't need in an elementary school, and there's spaces in elementary that might not have been available.
Right,
in
and we
the
also
middle.
had to add classrooms, so that was something that happened.
And I remember us going out in the back about the playground. We needed a fenced playground.
Yes, and that took place. They actually have 2 playgrounds at Gibson and a fenced-in backyard, so that the safety is not as big a concern.
What I'd like to do right now is let's take a short break, and I want to come back and pick up there at Gibson. But then after Gibson, we've moved on to Woodberry.
Yes.
Be sure to come back after the break, because we're going to talk a little bit more about what Kim is doing here at Woodberry.
Hello, my name is J.D. Edmonds, and this is my wife,
Janine Edmonds.
I am the Bonner Booster President, and I'm encouraging all you parents to get involved with your child's education, get involved with the community, and show your support for your kids' school.
Continue to be that bridge between the community, school, and family.
Hello everyone, my name is Alexandra Reddy and I'm the Beta Club President here at Galileo Magnet High School. Let me tell you about Beta Club. Beta Club is a national academic club that focuses on community service. And in fact, our motto is let us lead by serving others. So every month, the Beta Club here at Galileo completes a service project for our community and also for our school. And then in February, we travel to the state convention where we compete with other schools in the areas of English, science, social studies, talent competitions, and it's a really awesome experience. But I also have the honor of being the Virginia State Beta Club president, an election that I won back in February at the convention. So this means that I have to travel to at least 2 other state conventions this year. There's North Carolina, South Carolina, all across the country that I am able to travel to. So I'm very blessed to be the state president, and I'm excited for what the year holds and making Galileo proud and making Virginia Beta proud.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, I'm at Woodberry Elementary School, and I'm here to introduce the community to the new principal here at Woodberry. I said in the first half of the show, she's the new principal here at Woodberry, but certainly not a new person to education, a new person to our community. She's been here all her life, and she's also been with our school system about 20 years. Now, Kim, in the first half of the show, we talked about your experience, all your experience at the middle school level teaching. You've worked with gifted students. You have been an assistant principal, I believe, at Westwood. You were a gifted teacher at Bonner Middle School. You were spent 1 year at Taylor Elementary as principal, and Taylor was one of 3 schools that were closed. You moved on to principal of the new Gibson, where you had been as a teacher and as, I think, assistant principal. You moved there as principal of the new Gibson Elementary School. We talked about how you brought 3 faculties together, 3 communities together, and 3 groups of children that had not been together. From your 1 year at Taylor Elementary School,
Yes.
that was your first experience, let's say, being immersed in an elementary situation. Yes. What was that transfer from Taylor to Gibson like? Because that was not only a change in location and change in schools, but a school that was in major transition.
Yes, and I think one of the biggest tasks was to bring people together and to also make them understand that we were not going to operate as 3 separate schools that came together, that we were now going to be one school with one mission.
Did everyone bring that my school situation with them?
I wouldn't say everyone did, and I think part of what we tried to accomplish was to pay homage to each of those schools and what had been done in those schools. So if you ever have an opportunity to be at Gibson, you'll notice there are things all over the building that came from each school, and we tried to do that, to have a piece of history with us in our new beginning.
Even as an individual going in and out of schools, the first time I went over to Gibson and talked to you there at Gibson, it was even strange for me because I know quite a bit about Gibson as a middle school from some work I did there and some reconstruction and putting up the greenhouse and everything. It was even hard for me when I went back to interview you to rethink where I was, to rethink that building, to rethink that whole thing. So that had to be part of what you felt, but especially those teachers that came there.
Yes, I think it was. And then one of the things that we worked on was especially for the children as well as the adults, was a sense of belonging, that this was where we were supposed to be. And that was a goal. It wasn't a goal that could be accomplished in a very short amount of time.
No. Now, how long were you at Gibson as principal?
3 years.
3 years. That brings us up to date. Here we are this year, and now you're the principal of Woodberry.
Yes.
You've gone to this school, what, it's about half the size of Gibson?
Yes, probably a little more than half, but about that.
What do you see as major changes from switching from the 2 schools? What do you see the challenges? What do you see the positives?
One of the greatest challenges for me to just learn the children. I very much make it a goal to learn each of their names and to be able to talk to them personally, not just as you're here in my building, but I want to know them.
But you've got a lot of background in doing that when you tried to pull those 3 communities together. Yes. in Gibson. So I mean, this is a little bit different, a smaller
just a smaller.
But you've got a lot of experience doing that.
Oh yes, and this is a wonderful place to work, a wonderful faculty, a great sense of team in this building. People pull together to support one another and to support the children. And I think our greatest mantra here is, if it's about the children, are we doing what's best for them?
Oh,
And so we take ourselves out of that, and how can we do what we do and make sure that it comes out what's best for the children.
How is your community outreach? How is your community support? What types of things are you doing with the community and with parents? Because I know you did a lot of that at Gibson.
Yes, we have a calendar set up this year with many events planned for parental involvement and to have our parents come and join us. We also are working with a new organization in the community called Better Together. It's a new nonprofit, and they've chosen us to be their beginning. And
What is Better Together?
it's a combination of groups, and they work together for the betterment of our community to do things better and faster.
Let me just try to put that in perspective. When Better Together, does that mean all the organizations in the community that work with children, work with schools, they're pulling it together? Is it that
I don't
type
think
of
it's
thing?
all of them. A lot of the churches are involved, and it's one particular gentleman who's heading up the organization and pulling it all together. They've been here with us for open house. They provided a great open house for our students. We did the open house part, and then they had a celebration of sorts for the children to come back to school.
Do they come into the school and work with the students? How
Yes,
are they actually going to help?
Well, we began last week with a Reading Buddies program. It's similar to the Book Buddies program that we used to have in this division. We have about 15 to 20 volunteers that come every Tuesday and Thursday and work one-on-one with students on reading.
If I'm one of those volunteers and I come in and I'm working with a student, what am I going to do? I mean, how do they work with the students?
Well, we began with a training program that one of our teachers, our literacy coach worked with, and Miss Joyce Hervin, who's a retired Danville Public Schools teacher.
Yeah.
They worked collaboratively to plan this and to train the reading buddies what to do when they work with the students. So then the school identified students that we thought could use a little extra one-on-one time.
So it's not a matter of just people coming in and spending some time with the children. They're trained.
Yes, they were trained to work with reading and how they can listen to the children read, the questions to ask to work on their comprehension, and how they respond with a book.
I think that one thing that we, as parents and as people working with students, that we forget sometimes is the modeling that students do. And just simply, if you did nothing more than just read to students.
Exactly.
That's a very important thing, because that modeling of reading and that joy of being read to is what makes readers in the long run.
Yes.
So
And it gives them an opportunity to love to read, and I think that's important.
that's part of that modeling, when they see someone else that loves to read, when you read to me, how I enjoy it. I mean, it's so important.
Right. And so they get that opportunity for one-on-one.
But what's even more significant here is that you've brought in the concept of comprehension. Do you understand what we're reading by teaching them how to ask those questions?
Yes.
And you're taking it, let's say, a step or two further. And you say you have about 15 people?
15 to 20 on a weekly basis.
Let me ask you something that sounds silly, but do you have males and females that come in and read?
Yes, we do.
Because I know that sounds crazy to say that, but I think it's so important for these children to see the men come in and read.
Yes, we have a variety of ages and a variety of people from all walks. Some are retired, some are taking time from their work schedule to come. Some are young that just probably have finished high school recently, and they're taking the opportunity in their schedule to come and work with our students as well.
And it's called what, the whole organization?
Better Together.
Better Together. That's wonderful. And this is the only school that they're working with?
Now, I believe they're also working with a school in the county, but we are the city school right now that they're choosing to work with us.
That's super. It's hard to say to a principal or anyone that's new in a position the first year. When I say what are your goals, I'm not asking for a lot of specifics, but what is it that you would like to accomplish this year here at Woodberry?
First and foremost, I would like to see us succeed academically. And I would love to see that we continue to build a sense of community and a sense of pride in being a student at Woodberry Elementary.
That's very important. Very important.
I think it is.
Now, how about your faculty? How is that transition going?
That's wonderful. It's just been a wonderful transition for me.
Now, haven't these teachers been here for a long time? It basically,
Some of them, not really. Some have been here a couple of years, some a little longer.
Okay.
But there was a great transition in this faculty just a few years ago. And we have quite a young faculty, but we also have a very excited faculty.
When you say a young faculty, I think that's an advantage.
It is.
Yeah.
I think so for me.
The exuberance, the new ideas that come in,
Right.
and that can-do attitude.
Exactly.
And that can-do, I want to.
And this is a
attitude.
great mix of a faculty because we have experience, but we also have that new re-energizing element.
Re-energizing, a good way to put it. I want to thank you for making time for me today and congratulate you on your new position.
Thank you.
And you are well qualified through you've spent a lot of time in the classroom. You've spent time as an administrator many years prior to coming to being a principal.
Yes.
And you've had a lot of different experiences as being a principal here in Danville Public Schools. So thank you so much for the work that you do.
Thank you.
For all of you out there that are in the Woodberry community, you've got an exciting year coming up. And Ms. Agnor here is doing a great job, has got wonderful experience to be here and to do what she's doing. I want to thank all of you for being with us this week, and be sure and come back next week.